Well, hey there, couples. I'm in the studio again with Tracy, and we're talking in this video about your personality type and your marriage. So in another video, we covered the 16 Myers-Briggs temperaments. So if you missed that one, make sure to check that one out where we kind of get into this in detail. Because in this video, we're going to talk about it more just in terms of your marriage. What's the point here?
Okay, so if you've been married for any length of time, you've probably discovered there's a lot of differences in the way you respond, the way you communicate, the way you react to things that happen in your life. And the reason is because you guys have different personalities.
Right.
And I think that many of us buy into the lie that, well, we're just so different, I don't think we're compatible. I don't think we fit together very well.
Right.
How we should be looking at personality is to say our differences are what make us stronger. And that where you are different than me is actually to the strength of our marriage, not to our detriment. So if you can think about viewing and learning and wanting to understand your spouse's personality, like you want them to understand yours, it doesn't have to be something that's combative. It can be something that brings great strength to your marriage.
Right. Okay, so for example, I am an ENTP, and that's my temperament. I've taken several of those tests. We'll put links below to the tests so that couples, you can do this. It'll take some time, but take the tests.
Yeah.
Figure out your personality type so that you can watch this video and really grow from it and make sense of it. What's your personality type?
So I'm an ESFJ.
Okay, so we're both extroverted. So let's start with that first one.
Okay.
Extrovert versus introvert. How should couples be thinking about that?
Okay, so again, we happen to be the same in this particular area, but it's not. I think a lot of people misunderstand extroverted and introverted. So if you're married to an introvert and you're an extrovert, that doesn't mean the introverted spouse doesn't like people. And then you're looking at them saying, why can't you like people more? What's wrong with you? That's crazy. So looking at it like extrovert's better than introvert. So in your marriage, if we were opposite in that, and let's say you were the introvert, because to be honest, I feel like you're right on the line there.
Right.
You're barely an extrovert, right?
Right.
So instead of me looking at you and wanting to be critical of the fact that you don't want to be around people more, it's just because in your temperament, you're more energized by more of the isolated, quieter times, reading, intentional conversation with one person or one thing. Being in big groups with lots of people just isn't as energizing to you. So it's not a matter of choosing between extrovert and introvert, like I'm better because I'm an extrovert, you're weaker because you're an introvert.
Right.
And I think that's what happens in a lot of marriages.
Right.
You begin to look at it, you're different than me, so you are worse of a person because you're not like me.
Right. You should be more like this.
Yes. You should want to be with people more and you should want to go out more.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, and so having this understanding, again, couples, as you find out what your spouse is, and then as you read about it and learn about it and understand it, man, this is because there are positive things to being an extrovert and there are negative things to being an extrovert. And so just having an awareness is great, not just for you personally, but it's really good to know that about your spouse.
That's right.
Also. Okay,
Neither of them are better than the other.
Right.
They're different.
They're different, yeah. Okay, how about the second grouping? So sensing versus intuitive. So I'm intuitive, that's an N in the profile.
Right.
I'm an N, intuitive, and you are an S.
Right.
So what do couples need to be aware of with this?
Okay, so I'll just speak to it in terms of the dynamic in our marriage. It's been so insightful for us to do this and to learn from it.
Yep.
But for an intuitive person, for you as an N, you are intrigued by possibilities and how things might fit together. And you're okay to gather lots of different information in different ways, and you're not settling on a decision necessarily right away. So for me as a sensing person, the sensing personality is more kind of black and white. It's a little more rigid, like everything has a way that it fits together, and it's like you don't want to move on from one issue till you get this thing figured out. So those can work against each other pretty easily. Let's even take vacation. How you and I have had conflict on vacation situations before where you're like, who cares? Who needs a plan? Let's just go explore. Let's just let the day be what it's going to be. And I'm thinking, well, what about this? And we'll have to be able to eat and have transportation. And what if we miss the bus? If we were at you know what I'm saying? So you're more like, what are the possibilities? And I'm thinking we need a plan.
Right.
So that can cause trouble. But so neither of those are negative. Those can work together. And actually there are many times where when I've allowed myself to let your intuitive side play out, I've really enjoyed that. That I would have missed out on it if I just always chose to be the yes.
Yeah, that's good. All right, the third grouping then, thinking versus feeling. So I'm a T, so more logical.
Yes.
You're an F, more feeling
Yes.
based. So how should couples be thinking about that one in their marriage?
Okay, so again, I'll just speak to it from our dynamic. So for you as a thinker, you're kind of into the information, and you're looking at that, like you said, it's more logical, and you're just kind of more, how does this information fit together? Whereas as a feeler, I'm thinking about it more, well, how does that, any decision we make, how does that make us feel? How does that make somebody else feel? We're more aware of the emotional piece of how information that might lead to a decision or to an outcome, how that's going to affect people emotionally. And so again, sometimes for us, that can work against each other if we don't understand that there's strength to you looking at the facts and being logical and being sure of your opinion.
Right.
But there's also strength to thinking about how our decision-making process affects whoever's involved in it.
Yeah. Well, I think this is especially interesting with parenting because
Yes.
if probably a lot of you guys out there might be a T. I don't mean to stereotype, but a lot of the men out there might be a T. A lot of the women might be an F. I know it can go either way, but so if you apply this in your parenting, for example, approaching a disciplinary issue or approaching some sort of a relational issue that your kids are having at school or something like that with sports, from the logical vantage point versus the feeling vantage point.
Right.
I personally think it's really to our advantage that one of us is a T and one of us is an
I
F.
agree.
So probably, I think couples out there where you've got two T's, you really probably want to just pay attention to the fact that you've got two logical parents, that's how you approach that parenting issue or that relational issue or that situation. Be aware of that.
Right.
Because I think you've got to be aware of what you're raising, what you're modeling, and how you're interacting with your kids.
Right.
So even if you're both the same thing,
Right.
I think it's helpful to understand what you are so that you recognize the weakness that could bring into your marriage.
Right.
And then if you're one of each, then that's great. Really, I think talk together about how to team up together and make that positive for your family.
Right. Right.
Last one.
So the last one's the judging, perceiving, the
Right.
J or the P.
Right. And I'm a P and you're a
J.
J, right? So we're opposite again on this one.
Right. So the judging is you're a routine person. Everything is in place. You kind of live by the list. You thrive on order. Whereas you, as more of as a perceiver, are, again, you like to explore, and you don't want to be tied down to the list and stuff. That's just not how you are, which for us, and a lot of our conflict in marriage has been, you'll be late a lot. And so I'm learning to realize that for you, in the moment, meeting with someone, having a conversation with someone, whatever that conversation was that was important, outweighed the importance maybe of saying, hey, you said you were going to be home at 6:00 and you weren't. So in my temperament, I'm thinking, hey, there's a routine and a list, and this is how it goes. But that, as a perceiver, you're able to say, but sometimes you can't work in that routine because other things come along. Right. So again, there's strength to that. Now, the strength for me is if you weren't married to someone that maybe had more of the judging temperament, you'd never get anywhere anytime.
Yeah.
You need a little routine.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so once again, couples, the whole point to this conversation isn't to tell you how we feel about it. It's really to get you to understand there are these temperaments, personalities. So use the inventory below to figure out who you are. Talk about this with your spouse. Talk about this maybe if you have a couples group or a mentoring couple. It might take several conversations to really understand this. Use the questions below to dig into this. And I think it will really enrich your marriage if you would understand your personality type and then apply it to your marriage and your parenting. So do that, and then we hope to see you in the next video.